1.
So, now all of Pallet Town are my willing servants. That was too easy. All that's left is to move outward, and this world will finally be saved. There was only one thing I had forgotten about. Ash! I glared at Pidgeotto. How many times have I told you not to call me that? Sorry, Ash, but I have important news. I sighed, knowing that trying to convince her to call me Ashura was pointless. What is it? Mewtwo has arrived. What? I cried, jumping out of my seat. She nodded. He wants to talk to you. I settled myself down and took a deep breath. Fine, bring him to me. A sleek violet form materialized behind Pidgeotto. I don't need an escort, Ash. Pidgeotto flew up and landed behind me. I growled at the newcomer. Why does everyone insist on calling me that? It could be because that's your name, Mewtwo said idly. I fumed, but didn't reply to that. What do you want? I came seeking peace, Mewtwo said. The actions that you have taken are extreme and unnecessary. We believe that you should stop now and return everything as much as possible to its original state before drastic offensive measures are taken against you. And that means? It means either you quit on your own, or we'll have to stop you ourselves. Who's we? Everyone who hasn't already fallen prey to your mania. I snickered. You think you're going to be able to stop me? Including the remaining Mews. I stopped laughing, but it still seemed ridiculous. What are you going to do? I asked calmly. We're going to stop you. How? By doing whatever it takes. Even if it means killing me? He breathed in sharply. It seemed as though he was afraid of that question. Well? I asked. His tail twitched forcefully, and he looked down instead of at me. If that's what it takes, he whispered. I could hear the regret in his voice. Then kill me now and get it over with, I stated matter-of-factly. He snapped up and stared at me with wide eyes. What? Pidgeotto cried. I nodded at Mewtwo. Trust me on this. It's the only way that you'll ever stop me. He hung in the air limply, staring at me with his jaw loose. Even his tail stopped twitching and hung down unmoving. What's the matter, Mewtwo? I asked. You're not afraid, are you? No, I'm not. Then what's wrong? If you really want to stop me, then go ahead and do it right now. He tore his gaze away from me and down to nothing. I can't, he whispered. And why is that? I asked. Because you don't want to hurt me? Because we're friends? If you were a real friend, you'd do what you think was right for me. If you think it's best for me to stop what I'm doing, then you would kill me right now. Mewtwo flicked his tail slightly, but said nothing. If you were my enemy, then you would want to stop me no matter what, and you would kill me. So, whether we're friends or enemies, it's your duty to destroy me. No! He shouted. He regained his composure somehow and looked down at me. It's not like that, he insisted. There's no honor in being merciless. That's what I've learned from you, Ash, and I believe it. I'm not going to hurt you unless you prove to me that there's no other way. He looked disturbed. It must have been something I said. I think you're mistaken, Mewtwo. You see, I don't think you know who you're dealing with. My name is Ashura. I killed Ash. There's no place in the world for weaklings like him. I sighed. Unfortunately for you, it looks like he's made you soft. I, on the other hand, show no mercy. If you decide to get in my way, I will not hesitate to kill you. If I were you, I'd play by my rules. I don't think he understood a word I said. That's impossible. You have to be Ash. Who else? One word. Ashura. That's my name. Don't forget it. And don't think for a second that Ash will be joining us from beyond the grave. Ash, you can't be dead. You're right here. I am Ashura. Get used to it. Or don't. If you really want to stop me, then you'll have to kill me. And if you do, then you won't have to deal with it anymore. I won't hurt my friend. Your friend? Well, congratulations on making one. Too bad he's already dead. What are you talking about, Ash? I'm saying that you don't have to worry about Ash anymore. Nothing can hurt him anymore. You I leaned back and smiled at Mewtwo. I think you're starting to get it. How could you? It was easy. You said you believe in fate, don't you? Well, Ash was getting in the way. I took care of that. Now, if you're the pure one from the prophecy, then you shouldn't have any problem stopping me. So go ahead. I'm fine with letting destiny rule. Mewtwo clenched his fist and didn't look me in the eye. I could see his body tensing as he fought himself over what to do. I waited patiently. Whatever he tried to do, none of it would matter in the end. If he did succeed in getting rid of me, then I had nothing to worry about anyway. If he didn't, then I would just continue on my way. Pidgeotto, get out of the way, Mewtwo said quietly. Pidgeotto squawked in surprise. What? I smiled at Mewtwo. Do as he says, Pidgeotto. I don't want you to get hurt either. All right, but be careful, Ash. Pidgeotto flapped up to a safer spot higher on the tower. I kept smiling at Mewtwo. Go ahead now, I said. I had barely finished saying that when an enormous psychic blast hit at point-blank range. I shut my eyes and held onto my seat until the pure intensity of the blow faded away. It wasn't until then that I realized that I had instinctively protected myself with a soft barrier of shadow. I was still completely intact. You can do better than that, I said honestly. I hadn't even finished my sentence before Mewtwo hit me with another incredible blast. That time, my weak shielding didn't hold out. The blast hit me in full force. I gasped for breath and found none. The temperature surrounding me skyrocketed. I found myself forced to dispel the blast with a true barrier of protection. The attack faded quickly after I constructed my shield. Mewtwo still hovered in attack position, but fired nothing. His eyes widened when he saw me still unscathed. I guess you're not the one, I shrugged, and gave him a small taste of his own medicine. It was enough to get him far out of my sight. Pidgeotto, send for Billy, and Misty. Alert the Pokemon and all able humans to prepare for war. There's gonna be more of where he came from. I was right. That meeting with Mewtwo ignited the greatest war in over 5 centuries. Something's coming. No, someone. No, 4 someones. They're angry at something I did. Why wouldn't they be, huh? They're strong. I opened my eyes. Misty! I heard her scurry onto the balcony. Yes? Gather the strongest electric Pokemon available and bring them to the top of the tower. Also, alert Charizard that there will be a battle soon, and I may need a team of flying Pokemon. Make sure that only the best come. This won't be an easy fight. There was silence. She hesitated, not leaving and not speaking. Who are we fighting? She whispered. I'm not sure. I glared at her. But it doesn't matter. They're hostile, and that's all that matters. Get moving! Right. She turned and quickly went downstairs to find the fighters that I'd requested. I turned my attention back to the 4 attackers. They were very strong, and very brave, too, to come at me like this. And yet, somehow, everything seemed so familiar, but still so very strange and unreal. Wrong, even. That's impossible. There's no such thing as right and wrong. Just me and the rest of the world. They're the bad ones. It's my job to fix them or kill them. By the time Misty had gathered the 15 best electric Pokemon and Charizard and Pidgeotto had found the 5 best flying types, the 4 intruders were just outside the city walls. I hovered in front of the group. I will face them alone to find out what they want. If they want to fight, then I will give it to them. None of you are to jump in unless I give the word or you see me fall in battle. I'm assuming that you'll never have to jump in, but you're here and ready just in case. Now, goodbye. I flew toward the 4 powers. As I got closer, I could feel their strengths, and in doing so, I found their weaknesses. Psychic, fire, electricity, ice, all flying. The legendary birds, -1. It would have been easier to get rid of them one by one, but this'll have to do. I didn't even recognize it as a voice, but I heard a melody, a bitter, sorrowful song, a song of mourning, a battle cry for revenge. Before I realized it, there they were, directly in front of me. Moltres, the bird of flame, Zapdos, the bird of thunder, Articuno, the bird of ice, and Lugia, the guardian of the sea. The first 3 flew back and forth or in circles behind Lugia, who simply floated in front of me. "So, we finally meet," a strong yet soft voice said. Normally, it would have seemed to be a friendly voice, but it held in such contempt, and it was almost frightening. "You're Lugia, huh?" I asked. "That's right. I'm guessing that you are Ashura." "Right. Not to be confused with Ash, who no longer exists." "It doesn't matter. Tell me why you're here." Lugia gazed down at me. I could feel both his power and his hatred growing. "You killed Ho-Oh. For that, you must die as well." I sneered at Lugia. "We'll see about that." With one flap of his wings, Lugia ascended upwards, shadowing the sun. "Ice! Electricity! Fire! Water! Now!" All 4 birds sent their attacks spiraling towards me. I wrapped my tail around me and grasped it. A black shield encircled me, but it took all I had to keep it up. They pressed in from all sides, threatening to collapse my shield and leave me vulnerable. When they stopped, I let my shield down and looked up to see whiteness hit me straight on. I was blinded, then slammed again as the white drove me down. "No! I can't let them win!" I gathered up as much power as I could and shot it forward. The whiteness dissipated, finally allowing me to see again, and my own dark blast nailed Lugia in the jaw. He stumbled back, dazed for a second. I didn't hesitate to power up another attack, but neither did the other 3 birds. I was pecked, slammed, and smitten from all sides. A forceful outward attack was enough to drive them away for a moment. "All right, Lugia. You asked for it." I powered myself upward and slammed Lugia in the chest. He was stunned for only a second, and then quickly retaliated with a swipe of his wing. I didn't even have time to flinch before I was flamed by a fire blast from Moltres. Those 3 are getting in my way, but I can get rid of them. "You want me? Come and get me!" I did a flip and sped back towards the tower. I was running the risk of getting the tower destroyed, and quite possibly some of my best Pokemon killed, but I needed to face Lugia one-on-one. The 4 birds gave chase, forcing me to go nearly at top speed. "Attack!" I shouted. "Get Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres! Leave Lugia to me!" "So, you're afraid to face us together," Lugia said in a low voice. "Not afraid, just not stupid," I retorted, spinning around to face him. He had to stop to keep from plowing into me in the tower, which wouldn't have been good for either of us. "Come on," I grinned and zipped straight up. Lugia hesitated for a second before following me. "In the name of Ho-Oh, I will destroy you!" "We'll see about that." Lugia started off by throwing a huge cyclone at me. I dodged to the side and got rid of it with a razor wind. "Gonna have to do better than that." Lugia let out a harsh cry, unexpected from a creature that could sing so beautifully. He formed a glowing yellow sphere and increased its size and power by the second. Hyper Beam. Well then, this should be a good test of power. I created a sphere of my own gold, like the sun that had lost part of its glory. Lugia fired before I had finished, but I fired too anyway. The attacks hit dead on in a matter of seconds. The explosion rocked both of us and everyone nearby. I glanced down to see Charizard rush straight into Moltres. They both plummeted downwards and suddenly burst into flame above the city just below them. They separated, and Charizard went in for another rush. Once again, the fire engulfed them in a bright flare. "Charizard, what are you—" Before I could finish my sentence, something slammed me hard, and I crash-landed onto the roof of the building. I saw spots for a second, then recovered and glared up at Lugia. I jumped back up and fired a psychic attack at Lugia. He moved to the side, and it passed by him harmlessly. Angered, I surrounded myself by darkness and shot as much of it as I could towards Lugia. Dark fingers scraped against him, and he cried out in pain. Finally, I had found his weak point. There's more where that came from. I zipped up and grabbed onto his neck. "You want to see Ho-Oh again, don't you?" I whispered. He panicked and flapped wildly, trying to throw me off. I just grinned and gave him my best shot. He convulsed as the darkness swept through his body. His cries came out as mere gurgles, and his eyes went wild with pain. I heard a sound of air simply being tossed aside, but it only lasted for a second. Not nearly enough time for me to figure out what it was, and it hit me with the sound of a bullet, knocking me off Lugia. It grabbed hold of me as we sped through the air, and we spun for a long time before finally coming to a stop, giving me a chance to see who it was. He almost looked as if he were on fire. A blinding yellow eddy swirled around him, making it hard to make out any distinguishing features, but I recognized him nonetheless. "Nikiro?" "That's right," he whispered. And I'm not going to let you do to Legia what you did to Ho-Oh.